Yahuwah, I truly thank you for the Shabbat, my King. I thank you for the set-apart day that you have made available and that you have put there for us to be able to draw near to you on this day. I thank you, Father, that you want to meet with us, Father. And I stand in awe when people will turn around and say to me, well, every day is a Shabbat. But I thank you, Father, that I know that today is a set-apart day. And this is a time when you have an appointment with each one of us. And Father, these Torah portion readings is not something that we read by accident. It's not something that we're just reading because it's a good idea. And especially with the word that you have given me in the night and that which you keep speaking to me, it is now time that we must start to put into practice that which we are listening to. And so I just want to thank you for your word, and I thank you for the lessons that we keep learning from your Torah. Abba, I praise and I thank you for this Torah. I thank you for the foundation that you have given us in your word as a pattern for us to learn from. And yet I stand in awe when I think of people that would just, like myself, the way I was, just ignore numbers. Because I would think, numbers, who wants to read anything about numbers? But Abba, when I think of the pearls that is in numbers of lessons, every week is a lesson, and every week is for us to be able to draw closer to you in that which you are wanting to be able to reveal to us in this area. Reveal to us in this time through the Torah portion reading, in this time that we find ourselves in, for us to be able to draw closer to you, because there is a message in everything for us to draw closer to you. As you spoke to me in the middle of the night and you said, I require truth in your innermost parts. And now is the hour for truth. And we need to be able to discern the truth. And this is what we will learn from this Torah portion reading. As Abba, truly we are living in a time of great deception. And so I thank you, Abba Father, for this word. I thank you that you will speak to my mind and speak through my lips the very oracles that you want to share with us in this day. I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen. So we are going to look at this Torah portion reading. As we look at the name Balak, what is the name Balak? The name Balak means devastator, a waster, to make waste, to annihilate. Now that, my goodness, rings a bell to me in so many ways. As truly the enemy is the one who brings devastation. He's the one who wants to annihilate us. He's the one who wants to bring destruction. And that is why in this Torah portion reading, we need to be able to understand that in this time, we have a destroyer, a devastator. We have things coming upon our lives in this time that is wanting to come and bring devastation. And if I just think of what is going on at this point in time, it just brings tears to my eyes, because I think, oh Father, truly the spirit of Balak and the spirit of Balaam is in our midst. Because we have those in our midst that will bring destruction in more ways than one. And that is why we need to look at this as a spirit. And where does its origin start from? And so if we look at Balak, where does Balak start from? Where does he come from? Why does he come to do the things that he's doing? Why? Because we're going to read in Numbers 22. We start in the beginning. Numbers 22 verse 2 says, and Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was in dread because of the children of Israel. And so here we see right in the beginning, we already see the core of this whole parasha, which is already what has been spoken by Francois, where he said, fear. And what is fear? If you take the word fear, false evidence appearing real. Yeah, in this case, this is exactly, they have every reason to fear. Because at the end of the day, they know that Israel has got an owl, mighty and powerful behind them. But do we fear the owl of Yahuwah? Or do we fear the kings of the world and the things of the world? And who do we fear? Because at the end of the day, the thing that we fear will come upon us. Because if we meditate on false evidence appearing real, what is it going to do in our lives? And so if we go and we look and we see, yeah, we have a clue that because he's fearing these Israelites, and because he's fearing the owl of Israel, what does he resort to? He resorts to what is in his DNA. Because he resorts to going to be able to send for a man that is Bilam, son of Beor, verses 5, at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the sons of his people, to call him, saying, see, a people have come from Mitzrayim. See, they have covered the surface of the land and are settling next to me. And now, please come at once, curse this people for me, for they are too strong for me. It might be that I strike them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So we need to look a little bit deeper to understand why is it that Balak goes to Bilam? You must understand that Balak is a man that comes from the origins of where? He's a Moabite. He's the king of Midian at the time and of ruling over the Moabites. So we need to understand that we look at the origin of where Balak comes from. Balak comes from a union. Let's go back. Let's go back to Genesis. Let's go back to Lot. Let's go back to Lot staying in Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot comes from, he's staying in Sodom and Gomorrah, and then the angels come and they're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot is left. Lot leaves with his wife and his two daughters, and he's being told, you are not to look back. You are to go. You are to run. You are to not look back, because we're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot runs, and we know that his wife looked back, turned into a pillar of salt, and then the angels tell him where to go. And so the daughters go and take the father Lot, and then they say, no, all mankind is now dead, so we need to be able to do what? We need to come and we need to sleep with our father. And so out of a union of where they make the father drunk, they make Lot drunk, and in his drunken state, they go and sleep with him. And 2 tribes come out of that union. The Amorites from Ammon and the Moabites from Moab. So already in this man's DNA, there is a deception. There is an evil root of the union. And we need to understand that when we do not deal with our evil roots and the things that are there, these things will follow us in our lives. And yeah, we see. And the thing that was done out of the flesh is the thing that is still an enemy of Israel today. Those 2 tribes of the Moabites and the Amorites, that is basically the land of Jordan, they are still today a people that will be the enemy of Israel in the times to come. Because they came out of union of the flesh. And this is what we need to understand. Everything that comes from the union of the flesh is brought about to be able to birth a thorn in our flesh, and this will become an enemy in our lives. And so if we look at this account, we will see that what does Balak do? He goes to Balaam. Why? Because in verse 7 it says, and the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian left with the thieves for divination in their hand. And they came to Balaam and spoke the words to Balak, to him. So this is where we're going to need to paint a picture today, and this is what we're going to need to look at. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand, when fear comes in, what do we resort to? Do we resort to our flesh man? Do we resort to the things of the flesh? Because at the end of the day, Balak stands for the things of the flesh. He comes from a people group that was a union of something that was not of the Father. And it comes from a deception of where a father was made drunk to be able to be made people pregnant, a woman pregnant. And from there came a people group. So whatever we birth of our flesh has got devastating consequences on our lives. And that is the Balak spirit that comes upon us. It becomes a devastating spirit that comes to be able to want to annihilate. Because who do we give power to? We give power to who? To the enemy. To a Nahesh. A Nahesh. And what is the serpent seed known as? What is the serpent known as? He's a diviner. He's an enchanter. And this is what we're going to see with Balaam. Because at the end of the day, this is where we really need to understand. Because the name of Balaam is very important. Because Balaam's name means not of the people. So understand, he was a prophet. He spoke as a prophet. He comes himself from Midian. He's a prophet. He knows how to hear the Father. He has the gift of prophecy. And he's hearing the Father's voice. He's able to divine. He's able to speak prophetically, but he's not of the people. So at the end of the day, the Father is trying to show us, and our Bible is filled with understanding false prophets. And our Bible is filled with the example of this Torah portion for us to understand that in our days, this is what's going to come, is going to be the false prophets. And the Father has put in this word a way of us to be able to understand false prophets. And this is what we're going to learn from this Torah portion reading. Because this is what I really understood. Because there are times that I stand and I say, my Father, how do these people speak so accurately? They speak your word. They speak it so accurately. But yet their lives do not line up with your word. And yet at the end of the day, they are people that do not keep your ways. There are many that will be amongst us in a camp, but they are not of our people. Because at the end of the day, what is the essence of the heart? Because the Father will look at the heart. What is the motive of the heart? You see, when fear comes in a leader, when you get, like even if you just take, for example, in business, I'm not even going to go in the church. Oh, I'm going to go there. But take in business. When you are in business and you got someone that raises up and you become threatened by that person, what do you want to do? You annihilate them. Because of fear. Because you fear that they're going to take your job. So if you fear someone's going to take your job, what do you want to do? Annihilate them. That's the spirit of Balaam. The same as in the body. In the body of Messiah, especially in the churches, when you have one who raises up and wants to speak and and especially when it comes, I speak for myself because I know where I come from. And when you want to raise up and you want to speak a word that comes from the Father or whatever, then you just get annihilated to say, no, you just be quiet because only leadership is allowed to speak, or only the pastor is allowed to speak, or only whatever is allowed to do whatever. Why? Is it fear? Is it fear? Are we supposed to be coming in unity with one another and allowing our gifts to be able to flow as the Father wants it to flow? Or are we going to annihilate one another because at the end of the day, I don't want that person to be able to raise above where I am? And I know these are the challenges that we are going to go through. These are the challenges that we are going to face if we are going to want to be able to have a different group of people that are going to be a remnant of people that are going to be in unity and love one another and make room for one another. How many places do you know where people will even allow other people to raise up in what they're doing? They don't want that. But if we are here to encourage one another, and we are here to uplift one another, and we are here to make sure that each one becomes who the Father has created them to be in Him and in His ministry, as we read in Ephesians chapter 4, that He's given us apostles and prophets and evangelists and teachers and pastors to equip the saints for the work of the ministry of His ministry. But you see, when fear comes in, what happens? And this is why it's a struggle, because this is the sorcerer, this is the divination that starts to come in, that now we have to divine. We have to be able to impress. And you know what? We don't need to impress anything. Each one of us has a work to be done. I normally have to preach after Francois. And then I listen to his message and I say, Abba Yahuwah, I don't have anything to say. But at the end of the day, Father is the one who uses each gift differently. And even though we're speaking the same Torah portion, and even though there's going to be somebody else speaking the Torah portion, but that which the Father is going to show to whichever person it is that He's using to be a vessel for Him, and that is what He's spoken to me in the night, as He said, my child, understand, each one has a plan and a purpose that they have to go on a journey for me. And we are either going to surrender and allow him to do what he's got to do. We are either going to fear him or we're going to fear man. Because when we fear the things that are coming upon the earth, we will resort to sorcery. This is exactly what I saw this morning. Oh my goodness, if there's anything that confirms the message that I just did on Wednesday, this confirmed 100%. They feared, he feared, they were fearing. So what did they do? They go to find a man that is going to be able to bring about the divination and the sorcery that they are accustomed to going to for them to get what they want. The same as right now. Because of the fear of where we are, we will resort to, as we discussed last week, as I sent out the message on Wednesday of the teaching that the Father gave me, that right now people are falling for the sorcery of this drug sorcery that is being able to be presented us as being good, but it's going to bring destruction and evil by taking a jab. And so that is why we need to look at this. And as we look, we see this divination and sorcery is, you must understand, the enemy will always come. He brings you truth with a lie. And this is what the Father was speaking to me in the middle of the night, that he's given me a message. I will release it in the week. And he said, my child, I want now truth in the innermost parts. There can no longer be lies upon my people's mouths. If it's truth, then it must be truth. There can no longer be a mixed seed. And this is what the Father wants. And we are going to look at that in next week's Torah portion because of the mixed seed. Because now he wants truth in the innermost parts. So, if we work through this Torah portion, and we will see that they are offering him fees for divination. And is this not exactly where we are today? Oh my goodness, we have our programs and we see people that get invited for these big conferences. Prophet, the prophet is coming. And then the prophet comes, and does the prophet really come and bring the teaching of the word? Or does the prophet come to prophesy over a lot of people? Because everybody wants to run after the prophetic. There's nothing that draws people more than the prophetic. And that is why there's a danger in this, and that is why I can speak about this. Because this is where I must walk. And this is the authority that the Father has given me to speak up against the false prophets that come. Because you see, it's easy to run after the prophetic. Because these people have the visions and the dreams and they chase after these things. But how many of these prophets teach the word? Now, we are going to come back to, once we get to Deuteronomy, let's go to Deuteronomy 13, because the Father has put in place what we need. And it's interesting because this was a topic of discussion that a friend and I were having just about 2-3 days ago. And it says in Deuteronomy 13 verse 4, walk after Yahuwah your Lua and fear him. So, who are we fearing? Do we fear man? Do we fear what's coming on this earth? Do we fear death? Do we fear sickness? Do we fear pestilence and disease? Do we fear war and rumors of war? Do we fear the lack of having a job? Do we fear the lack of having food? Do we fear the lack of things in our lives? Do we fear the lack of having the finances that we need? What do we fear? Because there's fear in different areas. But Jared tells you, fear him and guard his commands and obey his voice and serve him and cling to him. We are reading Deuteronomy 13 from verse 4. And that prophet or the dreamer of dreams is put to death because he has spoken apostasy against Yahuwah. So now listen, let's just start in the beginning. I'm just going to start at the beginning. In Deuteronomy 13 verse 1, when there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder shall come true, of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them. So you see, here we go. Here is the thing. We need to understand that it's telling you that the prophet's words are going to come into fulfillment, that the prophet's dreams and visions are going to come into fulfillment. But if they lead you on another path, and they let you go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them, do not listen to the words of the prophet or the dreamer of dreams. For Yahuwah your Lua is trying you to know whether you love Yahuwah your Lua with all your heart and with all your being. So you know what? If there is prophets that call themselves prophets and they're not bringing you back to the word of the Father and the truth of his ways. Now let me give you a little understanding. You know, in Israel, when they go to the Sanhedrin and they go to those people of the Temple Institute and they go to the rabbis there and they tell them and they say to them, please, well, you need to be able to, they try and bring them Yeshua and they bring them this Messiah and they talk to them about a Jesus. And you know what? This is what they go back to. They go back to Deuteronomy chapter 13 because they say he is another God. They don't accept him as being the son of the living Yah. Why? Because if he's a son of the living Yah, he will adhere to the ways of the living Yah, which means he will keep his Torah. He will keep his ways. He will keep his statutes. He will keep his ordinances. He did not come to build a golden calf to make another way. So they will laugh at these Christians that go to Israel and that want to present them their Messiah. They can come with their signs and wonders. They say, yes, but he walked on water, he did all these signs and wonders. But they will say to you that he is a false prophet because the Messiah that we have presented to them is not a true Messiah, the one of the word. Because Christianity has been birthed from it's difficult for me to say this, but almost like another religion that causes a golden calf. A golden calf is something that we create in order to build something else. And so he says in verse 4, walk after Yahuwah your Lua, fear him and guard his commands and obey his voice and serve him and cling to him. And the prophet or the dreamer of dreams is put to death because he has spoken apostasy against Yahuwah our Lua, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim and ransomed you from the house of bondage to make you stray from the way in which Yahuwah your Lua commanded you to walk. Thus you shall purge the evil out of your midst. So guess what? When these people come, they're into the land of Israel. They want to purge them out of the land because they see us as being false prophets, as being false people that will come and say that this is their Messiah, when at the end of the day, nothing of what we've presented to them, that we want to do Christmas, we want to do Easter, we want to do Sunday, going to Sunday churches. We want to do everything. We want to eat unclean things. We don't want to keep anything that is Torah based. And now we want to turn around and say they ought to keep our ways because our Messiah has come to do away with everything. Where have we fallen from? So it says, when your brother or your son of your mother or your son of your daughter or your wife or your bosom of your friend is as your own being entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near you or afar off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pardon him, nor spare him or conceal him, because he will speak with a split tongue. He will divine to you. He will tell you the things that he wants you to hear, the blessed things, the nice things. But on the other hand, he brings you into destruction because he will not get you to come onto the truth of the Father's path. And there is so many prophets out there. Oh, Father, have mercy. And the people run. There is nothing that will draw more people than if you're going to turn around and say, well, it's going to be a prophet because everybody hangs around a prophet to be able to get a prophecy. Oh, my Father, have mercy. If the prophets were really to start prophesying the things that comes from the Father's mouth, and that's what he was speaking to me this morning. My child, truth in your mouth. Truth in your mouth. You can no longer speak falsehood and think that I will bless it. This is a new dispensation. I do a new thing. And the new thing that I do is truth in your mouth. So if you are a prophet, you need to be speaking truth. You cannot 1 minute be speaking all the things of the Father, but yet still hang on to falsehood. Because if it's a religious system and it comes from falsehood and you know the truth, the time is now that you need to speak truth. You can't keep compromising with the truth. And you know, it's interesting because it says, but in verse 9 it says, and you shall kill him. Your hand is first against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from Yahuwah your Lord, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage. And this is exactly what we see going on over here with Balak and Balaam. Because at the end of the day, Balaam is not one of us. It says his name means not of the people. So there is a way that seems right unto man, but its way will lead to destruction. And so at the end of the day, it's very nice to follow all these nice prophets that are going to speak these nice things, taking you into heavenly realms. But at the end of the day, we need to stick to what the word says in Jeremiah chapter 23. Let's go to Jeremiah 23 because it's already been touched on. But I tell you, if there is one scripture that we need in this hour that we're in, this is the scripture. Because they are going to say to you, peace, peace. So he says, from verse 11, for the prophet and the priest have become defiled. Even in my house I have found their evil, declares Yahuwah. Therefore their way is to them like slippery ways in the dark. They are driven on and they shall fall in them. For I bring evil on them, the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. So you know, even though Balaam in the end spoke exactly what the Father told him to speak, but the Father knew the motive of the heart. So do not be fooled. The Father knows the motive of your heart. That even though you're doing all the things that you might do for the Father and all these things that you do, but He knows the motive of the heart. Is the motive of the heart still to enhance yourself? Is the motive of the heart still to raise up yourself? Is the motive of the heart still selfish at the end of the day? It's still self being on the throne because you're self-promoting yourself. And I have seen folly in the prophets of Shimron, that prophesied by Baal and led my people Israel astray. And among the prophets of Jerusalem, I have seen a horrible matter, committing adultery and walking in falsehood. And they strengthen the hands of evil ones so that no one turns back from his evil. All of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Gomorrah. Understand, it's saying they are committing adultery. So what are these people teaching us? Are they teaching us to commit adultery? Oh, we need to go look a little bit deeper into this. What does it mean to commit adultery? Because we need to understand that there's many things coming from a church system, many things coming from a religious system that is not the truth of the Father's word, and it will bring us into adultery. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of hosts, concerning the prophets, see, I'm making them eat wormwood. and shall make them drink poisoned water, for the defilement has gone out into the land from the prophets of Jerusalem. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. They keep on saying, those who despise me, Yahuwah said, you shall have peace. To all who walk according to the stubbornness of their own heart, they say no evil comes upon you. So you see, these prophets, false prophets, will always speak the nice things to you and the nice things that the Father's going to do for you. But at the end of the day, where is the repentance? And this is exactly what the Father spoke to me this morning, where he said, my child, they come and they sit with me. My children come and sit with me. And all they do is a drive-through. It's this drive-through. It's they pray these prayers, a drive-through prayer, that I need to do this for them, and that they put in their order. This is what he said to me. He said, they come to me and they put in their order. Their praise is their order to me. They put in their order, and then they drive through, and then I need to be able to answer their drive-through prayer. But in that, there's no repentance. There's no truly seeking me. There's no truly coming back to me. No, it's a drive-through prayer. I must do this for them. I must do that for them. I must do this for them. But where do they ever come to me and ask me what they must do for me? Where do they come to me and find out what is on my heart? And you know, from a false prophet, yeah, we're going to learn something. Because at the end of the day, he still turned around and he said, I'm going to ask Yahuwah, what is he going to say? And so we look and we see in verse 25, it says, I have heard what the prophets have said, who prophesy falsehood in my name, saying, I have dreamt. Till when shall it be in the heart of the prophets of falsehood and the prophets of deceit of their own heart, who try to make my people forget my name? Now that is the one thing that the Father is really going to bring quite sternly in the word that he gave me in the middle of the night, where he said to me, if you know the truth, and you continue to speak another name that is not my name, you are bringing falsehood to my people. So I say to you, if you are a prophet and you know his name is not Jesus, and you know his name is not Lord and God, those are titles, and you continue with those names, you are causing the people to forget his true name. Oh, this is what he spoke to me in the middle of the night. He says, I want truth in your innermost parts. I want truth on your lips. Truth now, my child. Truth now needs to be spoken. You are to bring this word and you are to tell them, if they continue with their lies, I will hand them over to a spirit of delusion, because they did not believe and they did not have a love for the truth. So we cannot speak truth in one area and not speak truth in another, because it says, who try to make my people forget my name by their dreams, which everyone relates to his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name for Baal. And what is Baal? Baal is my Lord, my Baal. So they forgot his name, Yahuwah, and now we will call him Lord and God and all these titles that we want to call him by. The prophet who has a dream, let him relate the dream. And he who has my word, let him speak my word in truth. What is chaff to the wheat, declares Yahuwah? Is not my word like a fire, declares Yahuwah, like a hammer that shatters? See, the Father wants his word, because the word is like fire. The word is what's going to come and that's going to shatter. It's the word of Abba Yahuwah that is going to change the hearts of the people. It's his word that sets people free, because it's his word that brings truth in your innermost being, in your innermost part. Is not my word like fire, declares Yahuwah, and like a hammer that shatters the rock? Therefore see, I am against the prophet, declares Yahuwah, who steal my words, every one from his neighbor. See, I'm against the prophets, declares Yahuwah, who use their tongues and says, he declares. See, I'm against those who prophesy false dreams, declares Yahuwah, and relate them and lead my people astray by their falsehoods and by their reckless boasting. So do these prophets need to continue to give them these things that is going to be to elate the people and make them feel like, wow, this is amazing. But at the end of the day, it's just boasting at the end of the day. Because these dreams and these visions can bring you to boasting. But I myself did not send them, nor have I commanded them, and they do not profit this people at all, declares Yahuwah. And when these people or the prophet or the priest ask you, saying, what is the message of Yahuwah? Then you shall say to them, what message? I shall forsake you, declares Yahuwah. As for the prophet and the priest and the people who say the message of Yahuwah, I shall punish that man and his house. So the Father is bringing a distinction now. He's going to bring a separation. He's going to separate the chaff from the wheat. He's going to separate those that are his from those that are not. And I can tell you now, we can continue to listen to false things and they're not going to set us free. We can continue to listen to things that's going to make us feel good in our flesh, but it's not going to set us free. And the things that are ahead of us now, if we are not going to require truth in our innermost parts, we are going to fall by the wayside. We need to understand that we are entering into a time of application, not information. That was the word that the Father gave me this morning. My child, you're entering into a time now of application, not information. You have gathered enough information, and your information is not helping you. It's time that you start to apply that which is in my word. It's time. It's time for the new thing. Now you see, I have totally gone on another mission with this message of where I should be. So you see, at the end of the day, Father had his own message. I didn't need to worry about anything because none of what I've just been speaking now was even in my notes. But the Father took me on a mission. And so we look at this in Numbers 22 verses 17. It says, for I esteem you very greatly. Whatever you say to me, I do. Therefore, please come and curse this people for me. So he starts to raise up Balaam to esteem him greatly. So he starts to allow him to be puffed up. And this is part of the bribe of power. And this is what a lot of people want. A lot of people want power. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be known. They want to be needed. And you know what? That will take you on a road that before you know you're going to self-destruct. Because if you're still trying to build your own kingdom and you're still trying to build your own empire and you're still trying to be great in the eyes of the people, you are going to fall. Even though Balaam in the end did what the Father wanted, at the end of the day, he fell. And he's not known as a prophet that was a righteous prophet, but he was known as an unrighteous prophet. And so if we look at Numbers 22 verses 18, and it says, and Balaam answered and said to the servant of Balak, though Balak were to give me his house filled with silver and gold, I am unable to go beyond the word of Yahuwah my Elohim to do less or more. I pray that this be the way we would want to live. If this is what the Father tells me to do, this is what I need to do. I cannot go beyond that which the Father has told me. And how many prophets will speak a word and they go beyond that which only the Father speaks? So if we stick to just what the Father speaks, there is protection in that. But the minute we go beyond and we start to put our own reasoning minds in there, that is when we get into trouble. And this spoke volumes to me this morning, is that I prayed and I said, Father, help me not to go beyond that which you show me. If this is what you've spoken and this is what you're saying, then let me stick to that. Let me not put extra words in. because I will be judged for those extra words that I will put in. And Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went to the heads of Moab. But the displeasure of Yahuwah burned because he went, and the messenger of Yahuwah stationed himself in the way as an adversary against him. So, here we see, because, and Yahuwah came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call you, rise and go with them, but only the words which I speak to you, that you do. Because it says, and now, verse 19, and now please you also stay here tonight and let me find out what more Yahuwah says to me. Now, this is where we see where he falls. You know, he tells you in verses 18, he tells you that no matter all the silver and all the gold and everything that you're going to give, I cannot change what he has said, because he spoke and he said, you are going to bless the people. You will not curse the people. He says in verse 12, do not go with them. You do not curse the people, for they are blessed. And then he goes, and now the people come, and now he's going to say, and now please, you also stay here tonight. Why did he say to them, you stay here tonight? Let me go hear from the Father again. What, is he going to change his mind? Or was it now that they have told him that they're going to esteem him as great? And now he's going to fall. And you see, this is the thing. We will have our gatherings. And so the people will have their gatherings, and we want to be able to speak nice words that's going to be able to bring the people, that's going to be able to bring more people, because we want to speak things that are going to be able to just going to be, let us not tell them to repent. Let us not tell them any difficult things. Let's not tell them that there's destruction coming. Let's just tell them it's peace, peace, and let's tell them all the nice things. And then this is where eventually the prophets and the priests go astray, because they start to serve mammon. They start to serve the riches, and they start to serve the silver and the gold, and they start to serve power. It becomes about power. It's the 3 tests that Yahuwah had to undergo in the wilderness. The test of self-sufficiency, the test of the finances in your life, the test of the spectacular, where you can be seen as being spectacular, and then the test of self-sufficiency. The test of power. I give you all of this if you will just bow down to me. And so Abba gets upset because it was a test. You see, Father allows certain tests in your life because he's checking the motive of your heart. You need to understand. That's why I said we're being weighed in the scales. A Father allows many things in our lives, because we say, well, if it was the Father's will, if it wasn't his will, he would have closed the door. Because he turns around and he says he's not to go, and now he's telling him he's to go, but he's already seen that he said, stay with me the night. Stay here. So he sees that in his heart he's already going to fold. He knows the motive of this man's heart. He knows that he is a sorcerer. He knows that he's a diviner. He knows that he's going to be able to use him to prophesy, because his mouth carries authority and power, and he's going to be able, because remember, the gift will operate. That is why he says you do not judge them by their gifts. Even if they come with signs, wonders, and miracles, it's not by their gifts that you are to judge them. You are to judge them by the fruit of their lives. Because in the last days, Matthew chapter 24 is part of this Torah portion reading that talks about there will be many that will come in my name, and they will do great signs and wonders and miracles and all these things, and they will speak all these great things, and people are just going to follow. And these are the deceptions of the things that are going to come in these last days that we need to understand. And so the Father was testing him to see if he would stay faithful to what he had said in the beginning. In the beginning, he told him, you are not to go. and you are to stay, and you are to be able to bless my people. You are not going to curse them. But now when they come to him again, now he's saying, stay the other night, I'm going to go ask him again, and maybe he will have changed his mind. Why would the Father change his mind? When he gives you an instruction, he gives you an instruction. When he tells you, this is what I say, this is what I say. Because we read, and it says in verse 9 of Numbers 22, and Yahuwah came to Balaam and he said, who are these men with you? And Balaam said to Yahuwah, Balak, son of Zippor, sovereign of Moab, has sent to me, saying, see, a people has come out of Mitzrayim and covered the surface of the land. Come now, curse them for me. It might be that I am able to fight against them and drive them out. And Yahuwah said to Balaam, do not go with them. You do not curse the people, for they are blessed. And Balaam rose in the morning and said to the heads of Balak, go back to your land, for Yahuwah has refused to allow me to go with you. So he said, go back to your land. But then Balak sends the heads again. And this is where his test came. And now he says, stay. He didn't send them away. He said, stay. Let me go and seek the Father again. Let me go see. Maybe he's changed his mind. So at the end of the day, Father looks at our hearts, the selfish ambition. Are we ambitious for power? Are we ambitious for gain? Are we ambitious to be seen in the eyes of people? What is the motive of our heart? And then he sends an adversary. He sends a messenger that's going to stand. And the messenger stands with the donkey. And now he starts to beat his donkey. Because why? Most of the prophets will have lost discernment. And that is one of the most important things. He couldn't even see the angel. He couldn't even discern the angel. He could no longer hear. Because of the motive of his heart. Abba looks at the motive. Now he sends an adversary, one who opposes, an enemy of good. If we rebel against the Father, he allows the adversary to oppose us. Rebellion will bring the curse upon our lives. And then if we really look at Numbers 22 from 23 to 28, we start to see, yes, this goes backwards and forwards, where we see this, the donkeys eventually speaks. And then in verse 31 it says, and Yahuwah opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the messenger of Yahuwah standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed his head and fell on his face. And the messenger of Yahuwah said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? See, I have come out to stand against you because your way is reckless before me. Now, how many of us are our ways reckless before the Father? And what must the Father do? How far must Abba go with some of us? That we have things that keep going on in our lives before we will finally listen. How far must he go? That we cannot discern his way. That we will keep rebelling against him. And our ways are reckless before him. Then we want to pray the things away. But what we do not understand is if there's things coming in our lives and things coming in our lives and these things are bringing destruction in our lives and this is not going right and that's not going right and everything is against us, then you better get back to the drawing board because you could just be in rebellion. So the Father will allow there to be an enemy that will come of our soul. There will be an adversary of our soul because he wants to destroy the mind, the will, and the emotions of man to try and stop us. And yet we will carry on without discernment, just like Balaam had no discernment. Many times we will think that there's things going on in our lives and that we do not discern that the Father is trying to bring us to our knees in order to come back and say, okay, Father, He will not move me past my last disobedience. What did I do? What did I do? Maybe I shouldn't have allowed those men to stay the night. Maybe I should have sent them away the way I did the first time. So, in Numbers 22:35, we see the messenger of Yahuwah said, Balaam, go with the men, but only the word that I speak to you, that you speak. So here is a message for us. Let us speak that which the Father, that is wholesome, that is good, that is going to bring glory and honor to His name. Our words will carry power. Our words will bring destruction in our lives. If you're going to speak the negative things, if you're going to speak those things in your life, you are going to reap the destruction that's going to come from it. The curse will come upon you because of that which you yourself is going to speak. And I tell you, this is something that right in the beginning, when we were very much in the faith movement, it was all about the words. And in my office, when I still used to run my office, we would have a box and we would give each other fines if we spoke anything negative. And you know what? If I would have just continued to apply that, but then I came onto this movement, and we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so all of a sudden I started to focus on other things, and I didn't take charge of the negative things that would come out of my mouth. And I think we are in a time now that we need to understand that we need to come back, casting down every vain imagination that exalts itself above the knowledge of who Yahuwah is. And if someone says to me, oh, but you don't understand, you don't know this person, and you don't understand, you don't know the situation, I said, no, I don't, but I know my Father. And I know what my Father can do. And can we just speak positive in the situation? And if a situation is coming in my life, and it's to be able to bring the fire of purging and purification in me, then let me rejoice in the midst of it. Let me not bring curses upon myself through what I'm going to speak. Because life and death is in the power of my own tongue. And we will eat what comes from it. And this is the message that the Father keeps bringing. It's the message that's coming. And with most of the Torah portion readings, it's coming our way. I mean, that's exactly what we saw. From the leprosy to the spies to Korach last week. What are we doing? Not the week before was Korach, to last week again, speaking the negative. And you know what is amazing? This is what really amazed me when I was reading this Torah portion. These people have done so many things that is wrong in the eyes of the Father. They keep coming up against Him. They keep doing all these destructive things. But look and see what He does. Where He says, you do not curse the people, for they are blessed. Praise Abba Yahuwah. Isn't that just the essence of who He is? Even though we can be so going astray in our evil ways. And the Father lifts us up. And the Father dusts us off. And the Father comes and He encourages us. And the Father comes and speaks gently to us and says, my child, I understand that in your flesh you are weak. I understand that in your flesh you do many things that go astray. But my child, I still love you. And I have blessed you. Do not see where your faults are. Do not see all those evil things within you. Recognize them. Bring them before me. Repent of them. And let me come and heal your broken hearts. That is what He's wanting to do in this hour. He doesn't want you to beat yourself up and see now how evil you are. He wants you to recognize that you have areas in you, that you have tripped yourself. You trip yourself because of the areas that are within you. And that is me. I'm forever in Him now, before Him. And I say, oh Father, can anything good come out of this? This lump of clay. Because I see more of my faults than what I see anything that's good. But the Father doesn't want me to dwell on that. The Father wants me to confess it to Him and say, Abba, I can acknowledge that is why He says, do you come with your drive-through? Do you come with your drive-through prayers? Oh, about this and about this, about this. Or do you truly bring me your heart? Do you truly bring me the things that are within you that you can see? Come and sit with me and let me reveal to you those areas in your life that is not pleasing to me. That's all He wants. For you to come before Him. That's all He wanted in the Garden of Eden when He said, what have you done? Why are you hiding from me, Adam? What have you done? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not? No, this one told me to do it, and no, this one told me to do it. And when Cain was confronted again, oh no, you know what? Am I my brother's keeper? Instead of coming before the Father and sitting before Him and saying, yes, Abba, within me there is no good thing. Yes, Abba, within my tongue it's a split tongue, and sometimes I can speak blessing, but sometimes I speak curse. But Abba, will you come and help me? Will you come and take out of me that which is not of you? I need to sit with Him. I need to confess my sins to Him. I need to tell Him where I go wrong. And I need to bring those pains. I need to bring those hurts. Because you see, here's a man coming in a place of bringing deception upon a nation because of the very evil that his very root comes from. Where his mother deceived his father, who at the end of the day was his grandfather, to fall pregnant with him. He is a seed that comes out of destruction. But if we come to the living El, the Father gives a chance again to Balaam in order to be able to become, he's a diviner, he's a sorcerer. He is a prophet that can hear the voice of Abba Yahuwah, and he could have become great. He could have become a mighty leader, a mighty prophet for the Father. But instead, he allowed the fame and the fortune and the riches and the things of his flesh to get the better of him. And so what is the Father requiring of us today? What is He requiring of us today? He's saying, my child, I understand your flesh. I understand in your flesh there's no good thing. I understand, but yet I still bless you. I still want to bless you. Because He continues to bless them. And the more that Balak is wanting him to curse, the more he blesses. And he says, I've told you to curse, and 3 times you've already blessed. Now stop the blessing. He couldn't. Because how can we curse that which the Father has blessed? We are those created in His image. And if we're going to go the way of curse, it's because we chose it. Not because He chose it. He chose these people. He chose this chosen nation. He chose them. And then in the end, they chose not to listen to Him. They choose to go their own way. We have a Father, a Creator, who has called us by name, who has called us out from among the nations of the world to serve Him. But what are we doing? We go our own way. We behave either like Balak or we behave like Balaam. We either fear or otherwise we want to be able to do our own thing. What are we doing? So at the end of the day, I'm way past already any of these scriptures, and I'm not even going to go there because the Father is speaking His own message this morning or this afternoon. So at the end of the day, the Father is speaking to us in this hour. And He's wanting truth in our innermost parts. And He wants us to be able to walk in truth so that we do not become like Balaam, that is going to listen to the serpent seed and that is going to be led by our flesh man. So let's look at 2 Peter. And I think I'm just going to start closing off because Abba has brought his message this morning. But there also came to be false prophets among the people. 2 Peter chapter 2. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 1. But there also came to be false prophets among the people, as also among you there shall be false teachers, who shall secretly bring in destructive heresies and deny the master who brought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. And many shall follow their destructive ways. So do you see? This is what everything of what the Father is trying to teach us here. Will we only do that which the Father tells us to do? Will we stick to what the Father tells us to stick to? Because that's what Bilam said. I am only going to speak that which the Father speaks. And he kept blessing them and he kept speaking prophetically. And eventually he prophetically speaks even about the Messiah coming. And it says, and many shall follow their destructive ways, because of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Now I need you to understand that there are many that speak evil of us because we keep the way of truth. There are many that will stand up against us in these last days because they will say that we are the ones that are in error. We are the ones that are not walking the right way. We are the ones that wanting to keep the ways of the Father. We are the ones that want to speak the truth. We are the ones that want to be able to come back to what the word says. But of us, it shall be spoken of that we are evil. Because if the word is saying it, then that's the way it is. So, because of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. So you must understand, more and more there will be those that will come up against us, because if we speak up against the systems, if we speak up against the religious systems, and we speak up against the systems of the world, they will say that we are the evil ones. And in greed with fabricated words, they shall use you for gain. So you see, are we those that are going to be used for gain? Are you going to try and save your life for gain? Are you going to bow down to the things of this world in order for you to be able to save your life? From of old, the judgment does not linger, and their destruction does not slumber. For if Yahuwah did not spare the messengers who sinned, now this is what we just did this week when we were reading through the book of Enoch in the message that I brought. He did not spare the messengers. He did not even, he did not spare them. Moses himself did not enter the promised land because he struck the rock when he was supposed to speak to the rock. He did not spare the messengers who sinned, but sent them to Tartarus and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be kept for judgment, which is exactly what we read in Enoch chapter 1. That they have to be, that even though they sent Enoch to be able to intercede on their behalf, Enoch did not take. The Father said, I will not forgive them for what they have done. And did not spare the world of old, but preserved Noah, a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others, bringing in the flood on the world of the wicked. So we need to understand, and this is what I will cover next week Tuesday when I do the discipleship training program. We will go into that of understanding that there was only 8 people that were saved. And what happened to the rest? And why were those family members of Noah not on the ark with him? And having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterward would live wickedly, and rescued righteous Lot, who was opposed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day, that righteous man dwelling among them tortured his righteous being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. And this is what we do. We are living in a world that is lawless works. Day and night we're seeing the lawless things around us, and we try and speak up against these things, and yet people still shut us down. Then Yahuwah knows how to rescue the reverent ones from trial and to keep the unrighteous unto the day of judgment to be punished. So praise the Father. There he tells you he knows how to keep those that are his from the hour of trial. It says in the church of Philadelphia, he will keep you from the hour of trial that's coming upon the whole earth. He will keep you. He's not going to remove you. He's going to keep you. He's going to protect you. And most of all those walking after the flesh in filthy lust and despising authority, bold, headstrong, speaking evil of the esteemed ones, whereas messengers who are greater in strength and power do not bring a slanderous accusation against them before the master. But these, like natural, unreasoning beasts, have been born to be caught and destroyed, blaspheme that which they do not know, shall be destroyed in their destruction. Being about to receive the wages of unrighteousness, deeming indulgence in the day of pleasure, spots and blemishes revealing in their own deception, while they feast with you, having eyes filled with an adulterous and unable to cease from sin. So you see, if we are not going to cease from our sin, that's why I'm saying we need to bring these things before the Father. Enticing unstable beings, having a heart trained in greed, children of the curse. You see, why is the curse going to come? Because of our own evil inclination. Because we will be able to turn to the sorcerer, Hasatan, who is the sorcerer, the one who's going to come and entice. Having left the right way, they went astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. So you see, even though he was speaking by the mouth of the Father, even though he was prophesying powerfully out of the mouth of the Father, yet he loved the wages of unrighteousness. He did not keep Abba's ways and walk in Abba's Torah. He did not keep it. He delighted in unrighteousness. So as much as he was being used by the Father in order to bless Israel, in much as he was being used by the Father in order to bring blessing, and he prophesied mightily, yet he loved. His heart chased after the flesh things of the world and what his flesh desired and wanted, the riches that they could offer him. But he was rebuked for his transgression. A dumb donkey speaking with the voice of a man restrained the madness of the prophet. These are fountains without water, clouds driven by a storm, to whom the blackest darkness is kept forever. Do we continue to drink from polluted cisterns? Do we continue to drink from the cisterns that do not bring sustenance and life to us? For speaking arrogant nonsense, they entice. You see, they speak arrogant nonsense, and yet they entice the people through the lusts of the flesh, because at the end of the day, it's about you gaining more. It's about you being more powerful on this earth. It's about you having more. It's about you being related more. You will have these things. It says if you're going to do the blessings of the Father, He will bless you. So blessed if you obey. Cursed if you disobey. It's that simple. Through the lusts of the flesh, through the indecencies, the ones who have indeed escaped from those living in delusion. So you see, the spirit of delusion. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says He's going to send the spirit of delusion because they believed the falsehood. Promising them freedom, though themselves being slaves of corruption. So you see, they promised them peace. They promised them all these things, but they themselves are slaves to the corruption of their own flesh. For one is a slave to whatever overcomes him. So you see, if money is going to overcome that prophet, he's going to become a slave to that. If power overcomes that prophet, he's going to be able to be overcome by that. If being spectacular and power and famous and everything, he's going to succumb to that. So at the end of the day, that's the thing that's going to master over him. For if after they had escaped the defilement of the world, through the knowledge of the Master and the Savior, Yahuwah Mashiach, they are again entangled in them and overcome. The latter end is worse for them than the first. So you see, if they are not going to be able to forsake their lives to follow the Master Yahuwah, who is the one that has come to set them free from all the lustful things of this flesh and of this world, they will succumb to it and they will die by what they will try and save. If they want to save their lives, they will die. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than having known it, to turn from the set apart command. So you see how many people are going to fall. How many people will have known the way of righteousness? How many people have walked with the Father? It's not the way you started that's important. It's the way you're going to end. Knowing what you're going to stand for is going to limit what you fall for. For them, the proverb has proved true. A dog returns to his own vomit, and a washed sow returns to her rolling in the mud. So we're going to finish off with Micah. I just want to read a scripture from Micah. So it says from verses 7, Micah 5 verses 7, and a remnant of Yaakov shall be in the midst of many people as dew from Yahuwah, as showers on the grass, which do not wait for man nor delay for the sons of men. And the remnant of Yaakov shall be among the nations. That's where we are. We are the remnant of Yaakov amongst the nations. In the midst of many people, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion amongst the flocks of the sheep, who, if he passes through, shall both tread down and shall tear, and there is no one to deliver. So he is gathering his remnants that is among the nations. We are in the midst of the nations, and he's gathering them. And we close off with Micah 6 verse 8 that says, he has declared to you, O man, what is good, and what does Yahuwah require of you, but to do right, to love, loving commitment, and to walk humbly with your Yahuwah. That is what the Father wants. He wants us to walk humbly before him. He wants us to acknowledge our sinful ways. He wants us to acknowledge the things that are there, that are in our lives, that is still not pleasing to him. He doesn't want us to come to him in arrogance and pride. He wants us to come before him humbly, acknowledging that we are mere flesh and blood, but knowing that we have one who is the lifter of our faith, who is the one who's going to lift us up and put our feet solid on the rock of Yahuwah Mashiach, that we may be able to drink from the rock, who is Yahuwah Mashiach, the one who is the author and the finisher of our faith, the one who is the tabernacle, the one who became the tabernacle in the flesh for us, the one who came to show us the way, the truth, and the life, for us to be able to come back into a Garden of Eden, for us to be able to be seated with Abba Father in the heavenly realm, so that we may make a difference on this dark world that we live in right now. May Abba bless you all. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Amen.